Yes, the tickets go in this basket. You have a ticket, this will be in the basket, that will be for your attendance. Yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, thank you. Find a seat. Ticket. I also have a QR code if you'd rather just do the QR code. Okay. Hi, welcome. Go ahead and put your ticket in here and find a seat. What is the restroom going to look at? Yes.
That's so much better than
Basket on both sides. If you guys have tickets, put your tickets in this basket, and this will be your attendance. You guys have your tickets? Make sure you write your name. Should we go sit?
Wait, tell Max to go to class. I have no one to talk to. What are you doing? I just want to play basketball for an hour.
Night C-Tank. Start at
10.
Oh, yeah, I can unlock that. Hold on to these, and then we'll go back to the shelves back there. Thanks.
Front row seating. Front row. Okay, Peter? Let's go. I'll pay for you. Dude, we've been learning from smaller. It's all the more. It's all the more. That'd be cool. How are you? Pretty good. So you gonna play today? Yeah, you can practice. You need practice.
Okay. Everyone should have had a ticket to come or been invited by a teacher and get signed in. Are any of you here from Mr. Orn, Miss Louder, or Miss Heyer's class? Okay. So it looks like we're filling up. If we need more chairs, if you don't have a chair, there are chairs in the computer room. You can go grab one of the chairs in there and bring it up. So try to fill up the chairs that are set up first, but if anybody needs a chair, you're welcome to go in there and get a chair. We're going to give it just another minute. Travis, do you know if Shaylee's coming down? I think they're coming down. Okay.
I saw.
Yeah, they're coming right at this step.
So for those coming in, find a chair that's set up, and if there isn't one left, there are chairs in the computer lab. You can go get a rolling chair and bring it out. Okay, we're going to get started. We are so excited to have the Salt Lake Bees here today. So I've asked everyone, you know the phone policy, put your phones away. We can take them away if they're out. Be respectful. Think of some questions that you might have to ask our guests. We have Kara, Craig, and Tony. And we're so excited to have them here. So I'm going to turn the time over to Kara now, and she will tell you more about what they do. And I hope you guys enjoy this presentation. It should be great.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. How's your day going? Good. I have a really important question to ask. If you're cheering for Utah tomorrow, I need you to cheer now. If you're cheering for BYU tomorrow, cheer now.
Any Utah State fans? And sadly, if you're a Michigan fan, I need you to cheer now. All right, go Utes. They are going to get the dub tomorrow. I feel it coming. It's been a sad season so far, but things can change.
Like the one?
Yeah.
Awesome. Anyways, we are with the Salt Lake Bees. Like she said, my name is Kara. I am the Social and Community Relations Coordinator. Craig is our Communications Director, and Tony is he's the voice of the Salt Lake Bees. So he's the guy you hear talking on the radio and on your TV if you're watching it. What we want to do is just share a little bit about our roles, what our day-to-day looks like in the off-season and in the regular season, and then open it up for questions for you guys to ask. There's a lot of opportunities in sports, and I don't think people realize like all of the different roles that come in working with a sports team. I know she mentioned there's a retail class in here. Who's in the retail class? Raise your hand. Awesome. We have a guy by the name of Corey who he actually runs the retail store. He's ordering product, he's designing product, he's working with Rank and Rally and all of the other distributors to get product in the store. And so it's really cool to see his job. And when I first started like working in sports, I didn't know that was a thing until I met Corey, and I was like, oh, like you're like the mastermind behind all of the gear. And there's such a strategy to it that it's super cool. Who in here plays sports? Who in here plays baseball or softball? Awesome. Sadly, all of the athletes are away right now. As many of you know, they have off-season places where they live, where they train. I know we have a couple guys already in Arizona training for the next season. So they couldn't be here. But my role with the Bees is that social and community relations coordinator. My off-season really becomes community focused. Going into schools, talking with students about how you can get involved in sports, what you can do now as high school students to be prepared for college. How many of you are graduating in the next couple years? Awesome. So there's opportunities now that will set you up to be ready. Thank you.
To be ready for, wow, that is loud. To be ready for life after college or life after high school. So, and then during the season, my day-to-day is a lot of more social stuff. So interacting with the players, posting on social, getting players to events where they can participate in, just being involved in the community, fulfilling donation requests, things like that. So it's really fun. One thing I love about working in sports is no day is the same. I get bored really easily. Sometimes I think I have ADHD, but I've never been diagnosed. But that's the one thing I love about sports is every day is different, and it's really fun to go into work. I mean, I get paid to watch sports. Who gets to say that? And you get to meet a lot of really fun people and just network a lot. And so Craig is up next. He has been the communications director for 10 years, and he's been with the Bees for 13.
Hey everybody, so yeah, my name is Craig Williams. I started with the Bees as an intern in 2011, and then was around the organization for a couple years, working for the Jazz, working for the Bees. I was a sports writer for the Deseret News for 4 seasons, covering their Utah State sports, and then I came back to the Bees in 2014 where I served as communications director. Communications, I always describe as like marketing without the budget for us. You know, like at the end of the day, for the Bees, we're a little different as a sports team. Like if you're watching a Jazz game, the Jazz make money on this big TV contract, right? The national TV contract. They make money on this other stuff. The Bees, we were on TV this year for the first time in forever. And I don't think that was a multi-million-dollar TV contract to put us on KMIU. So we make money on like 4 basic things. We make money on people buying tickets, people buying merch, people buying food, and selling sponsorships, you know, their ads in the stadium, that kind of stuff. All of those things only work if there's people in the stadium. like the tickets only, obviously we're only making money on tickets if you're coming and buying a ticket. But we don't make money on merch if you're not coming to a game and buying a hat. We don't make money on hot dogs if you're not in the stadium to buy one. And the corporate sponsorships, if you have a sign on the outfield wall and there's 100 people looking at it, not a very valuable item to sell, right? So everything we do is trying to get you to come to a game. So my job as a communications director is community relations, public relations, media relations, and social and digital media. And all of that is trying to generate interest in the team without spending money doing that. So I'm not buying billboards, I'm not buying radio time, but I am finding interesting stories about the team that we can then turn into social media posts. We can turn into TV segments on the news. The local TV station, local sports guy comes down and talks to a player and brings up this interesting story, or a public or human interest story within the organization. This year we had a guy named Gene, who was one of our bat boys, except for Gene was in his 70s and he's retired, and so he's the only, we call him the Batman. He's the only Batman that we know of that's, that's usually a job for kids that are like 19, 20, cleaning cleats and that kind of stuff, and he's well retired, and he just wants to be around the team. So that's a fun story that we get to tell and put on the news. And then hopefully you watch the news, or you are looking at Twitter, or you're on TikTok or whatever, and you see this story and you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. I should go to a Bees game. And then we make money off of you, hopefully. That's the whole point. We're a business, so we're trying to make some money. So those are the main portions of my job. I'll hand it over to Tony, and then we can get more details, or I'll take as many questions as humanly possible, because I love answering questions more than I like just talking with no questions.
Well, thanks. I'm Tony Parks, broadcaster for the Bees. Had a wonderful, wonderful ride to be to this part. As a junior in high school, randomly ended up setting up situations where I could call our high school football games, and it's not like we had streaming and all of that. It was just a taped game VHS. And we would tape it, and then I was to help build a resume tape. Long story short, fell into a great situation where I was able to broadcast on what the station was called 1320 K-Fan, which was the Jazz radio network back then. And so called the game there, and then got to call the game of the week. And the very second game I had was Alta at Brighton. Of course, Alta won. And that was the second game that I had. And then over the years, had a chance to call Alta's championship game in 2008 for high school football. It was around some of their basketball success, including state championships. And so being involved in high school sports, and then eventually the Jazz, I was their radio sideline reporter, had the chance to be their in-arena MC. And then with the Bees, I was the in-stadium host. So if you've gone to games from like 2007 to 2023, I was the guy running around playing the games, throwing out the t-shirts, just trying to have some fun with the fans out there in the stadium. So it was a great time. Play-by-play was always my passion, and that is now the dream for me since the time I was a kid, and I live that dream every single day now. My favorite part is when people will say, man, you have a game every day, and I'm like, I know. It's great. I love it. There's nothing like waking up every day and going to a baseball game. To me, being at the ballpark is the greatest thing ever. People all the time will work in a studio, they'll work in an office, they'll do all these things. But there's a reason why we call it a clubhouse, because you work together every day and you depend on each other every day, and you have to be a great team in order to have success. If you're not, it'll show. So all of you athletes that are out there, no matter what the sport is, if you have a toxic culture, if you don't have trust, if you don't have those things, it will show in the performance. It will show in the practice. It will show in all the areas maybe some of the people don't see, but you see it. So what I love about the team I've worked for since 2006 is that those things have been so beautifully put together up until this point. So it's a great thing to be a part of. Obviously, being the voice of the team is really fun. I get an empty canvas every day, and I get a chance to paint pictures. And the game tells the story, and then I have a chance to put my art, my energy, my voice, and my talents on display. It's a really beautiful opportunity. There's only 30 of these jobs at the AAA level. I have one of them, And so I take great pride and responsibility in that. But also a big part of the team's culture. I enjoy being a part of that. And then also everything I do, I try to funnel towards bringing revenue. I try to make his life easier. He knows I'm not good at that. I try to make her life easier. She will tell you that's like eating Captain Crunch with a canker sword. It's not easy. No, but I try to just, everything I do is move towards how does it affect my team? As I create content, how can I make it better for social media? How can I make it better for earned media? How can I move towards attaching a sponsor? When you think like that, and you understand that in the marketing sense, then you become trusted by your team. And when you become trusted by your team, you start moving faster towards the dreams you ultimately have. So I don't want to leave it to your questions at that point, but that's what I absolutely love about being in sports and entertainment is because it's the closest thing I've seen to being a part of a team sport. From this point on, I'm a big Michigan fan, Michigan football. There was a historic coach named Bo Schembechler way back in the day, and he has this really famous speech. It's only a minute and a half, so if you ever YouTube it, don't think you're going to be listening to this long lecture, but it's called The Team. And he talks about, you'll go on from this, you'll never play for a team again. You'll play for money, you'll play for this, you'll play for that, you'll never play for a team again. And I'm fortunate in the place that I work that I truly get that team aspect, because there's nothing more special than that, than watching everybody thrive and succeed. So thank you for a few minutes today, and excited to talk with you.
All right, we wanted to open up to you guys and your questions, and so just feel free to ask and you can answer. Do you have a question? Questions?
For you, Tony, what were the steps you had to take to get the Jazz as a sideline?
So I started after play-by-play with the high school football stuff. I would still do that during the fall. And then I joined that radio station to get as a part of the radio station. Now, the funny part is when people want to be broadcasting, they think they're going to walk into a radio station and be like, Notre Dame's overrated, and Rudy Gobert's defensive rating is this, and they're going to be like, oh my gosh, let's give this guy a show. He's amazing. Put him on the air right now. It's just not how it works. So I had to be a producer. So I produced radio shows for years. And while I was a producer, I'm always looking for opportunities. Well, I noticed the Utah Jazz had their sideline reporter and their locker room reporter. So the other thing I did was I got to know the engineer. As I got to know the engineer, I tried to find out, could you put together a microphone and reception for the visiting locker room? Because nobody was covering that. And they were like, oh, I guess we could. It could take time. But before then, what if I record the interviews and run them up to you as fast as I can? And all my questions will be around the Jazz. So if there's something good, we could use it. Or maybe they say, Jerry Sloan's the greatest coach in the history of the NBA. Play that. Now we have something to work with. Now we have value, right? And that's what I was trying to bring to the team. So it can't just be, well, I want to do this. It's, here's how I can bring value to all of you. And then all of a sudden I started getting, here's how I remove headaches, and here's how I bring value. Those are the two things I constantly kept in mind. So that is how eventually I was the sideline reporter for the visiting team. The first game I ever did as the visiting reporter was against the Los Angeles Lakers, of all teams, and it was Kobe Bryant's first game back. Yeah, after all of his court appearances and all that. So guess what they really needed that night? Somebody in the Laker locker room. And still remember it vividly. And by the way, I did a great job. I knew I prepared well. And so once that happened, I bought their trust. So then whenever somebody was sick, somebody was out, something would happen, they would move me to the Jazz locker room. And then over time, people got promoted. And then it became an easy move. So but the first thing I thought of was, and you can do this too, wherever your dream is, think, how can I create value? How can I remove headaches? And how can I move this closer to what I ultimately want? Because you can be like, well, I want to do this. But if it's going to make life harder on everybody, or it's going to become really tough to accomplish, it's going to be tough for them to want to go climb over a mountain and make it happen. But that's it all started with problem solving and creating value. Those are the two things.
So I thought maybe it'd just be illustrative if Kara and I both talk about how we got to our positions too. So I'll talk to you a little about, I went to Utah State, as I was saying before, and you guys are all big Aggie fans, as we just talked about. They're just killing it this year. Football is awesome. In Logan, it's basketball season and football maybe happens. So I went to Utah State. I was there. I grew up loving sports. I watched the NFL. I watched the Jazz. I was watching baseball. And I didn't ever really consider working in sports as an opportunity. It was. I'm old enough that I'm the same age as LeBron James, and LeBron James got drafted, and I was like, man, I don't think I'm going to get drafted in the NBA. I didn't play high school basketball. I wasn't good enough then, but it was kind of like a realization this is not a career path for me. This is kind of a bummer. I always thought I could, be a point guard or something. So I got through, I was at Utah State near the end of my college career. I was graduating with a degree in psychology, which has almost nothing to do with my current job, but I started just writing. I loved Utah State basketball. I was writing about Utah State basketball on blogs and online, that kind of stuff. The Deseret News here, locally newspaper, they had a series of layoffs, and they let go of the writer who was covering covering Utah State for the Deseret News. And I had met him a few times, and he sent me an email like, hey, I got laid off. They're going to need somebody to cover a football game or two until they figure out who's going to take my spot. You should send in a resume and just ask if you could do it. I was like, well, sure, that would be the coolest thing ever if my name was in the newspaper one time. So I did it, and they were desperate enough that they took a chance on a schmuck like me that didn't know anything. And the next week, we got through it, and they're like, I was sending emails, do you want me to do the next game? Like, yeah, we don't got anything better. So I did week to week, and then the whole football season ended. I was like, you want me to do basketball season up here? And they're like, that'd be great. And I ended up doing that for 4 seasons. I was just there, they just counted on me. I was making between $30 and $40 for a story, which was super cool for me, but as a full-time, it was taking me hours. And after the first season, I moved back to Salt Lake, and I was driving to Logan to cover a game. So if you can imagine that's an hour and a half drive from Salt Lake to Logan. I would watch a 3-hour game, and then I'd drive back. It would cost me $20 in gas money to do, to make $30, so my name would be in the newspaper the next day, which I loved. I would do it in a heartbeat. Was not a sustainable career path for me. So after the first season I did Utah State, I saw the BSAT internship open, and it was in communications. And they were like, we just really want somebody that can really write. At the time, we were doing printed game programs. We're doing all these online stories. We're doing this, and they just needed a writer. And I was like, well, that's I could do that. So they brought me in, and again, I tricked them into thinking I could do the job, and I would figure it out on the back end. So I did that. That was my internship year. The internship ended, and I thought, man, I've got it all figured out. I was an intern for the Bees. People are lining up to hire me. That was not the case, unfortunately. So the season ended. The Jazz went into lockout that year. So at the time the Bees and the Jazz were both owned by the Larry Schmiller company. So they kind of crossed paths on that stuff. So the lockout ended. They needed somebody that had been in the NBA for an internship for them, so they couldn't use me. But I started working game nights for them. So I would run stats to the benches during timeouts, and I would transcribe quotes. Like Tony said, I would write quotes. I would have a busy locker room, just like Tony was. It was kind of funny. So I would run in, and I remember being in the locker room for Steve Nash's last game, if I remember right, and then the Heedle era, Heat with LeBron and Dwayne and Chris Bosh. Jimmer Fredette's first game in Salt Lake as a pro, and the locker room was packed, and we had to actually bring him out and do a press conference outside because there were so many people there. And you just hurry and transcribe a quote, get it out printed, and then it gets into the writers, and they get pumped into their story very quickly. So I was doing that. I was writing. I was helping out on Peace nights. I remember there was a writer who was at the Deseret News at the time, I think, and I was at a Weber State game randomly covering it for a blog, and he's like, dude, you're like Santa Claus. Everywhere I go, I see you. You're in every sporting event ever. And that's just the hustle it took to get in, hey, can I do this part-time job? Can I do this part-time job? Can I be at this game? How can I contribute to this? And I know that's the way that Tony was going through, was high school sports, pro sports, this, you know, the Grizzlies, the Jazz, the Stars, when the Stars came into town, Weber State, you know, anything you could do just to get our foot in the door and get people to know you was part of the path. And I know that's what Karen, she can talk about too, but she's, you know, at Utah games, at KSL, at Weber State games, like anything we can do. If you want to work in sports, would anybody here want to work in sports? Like, raise your hand if that's something that sounds kind of fun.
Okay.
That's cool. Like, it is a super competitive industry because lots of people want to do it because it's super fun. Like we were just talking about, like we go to a baseball stadium and watch baseball and then somebody gives us a check. There's a lot of people that are spending money to be at that baseball game and somebody's paying me money to like help that baseball game go on. That's awesome. That's a really cool part of the job. And it's a long season and at times you take it for granted. I know I do, but I'm sure Tony and Kara do too. But then you sit back and you look at it and you're like, man, people pay good money to be here today. And, you know, like, there are people there that, like, they're proposing. Like, they're, like, you know, like, the baseball stadium means so much. They have their first date there. They're getting engaged on the dugout foul. Like, this means something a lot to these people. And I get to be this little tiny part of it. So I would just say, like, what I was going at is, working in sports is a super competitive industry. A job opens up, and, you know, I open up internships every year, and I get crushed with applications of kids from across the country. And I know for a fact, there's people that work for me, and people I know that work for Jazz internships, they're taking, in communications, they're taking 1, 2, 3, sometimes 4 years of internships, just waiting for that full-time job to open up that they can take. So, you know, I have a friend that he's from Philadelphia. He was an intern in Trenton, in New Jersey. Then he went to do an internship in Memphis. Then he got a full-time job in Albuquerque, and then he got to be the Colorado Rockies PR guy. That's like a 7-8 year journey of crisscrossing the country, working for peanuts in some places, on the way to go to the major leagues. And that's not an uncommon path. I think the three of us are unique in that we're all Utahns and from Utah and locals, and we've done it the path where we've stayed local. But for a lot of people, it's like, hey, to make this work, you're gonna take the internship in, you know, Bakersfield, California, and hope that parlays into something on the East Coast. That then hopefully you make a name for yourself that you can go somewhere else, and maybe eventually you can get back home if you're really lucky. The three of us have been extremely lucky that we've been able to stay in Utah as long as we have. Kara, I'm going to talk a little bit because I talked with my career.
My experience is similar to theirs, but also different. I didn't grow up in Utah. I grew up in Washington State, and I moved to Utah to go to school at U, and I actually wanted to be a nurse. I wanted to be a travel nurse, and I got my CNA and decided I hated blood, and I still don't like blood to this very day. But I lived in a building where there were a few Utah Jazz players who lived there, and we would always end up riding the elevator together and started talking to them. And then one time there was 2 of them and they lived in different buildings, but I had a bunch of leftover dinner from my aunt's house for like Sunday dinner, and they were like, oh, that smells good. And I was like, do you guys want it? I'm not gonna eat it. And they were like, seriously? And I was like, yeah, you guys can take it. And so I became friends with these 2 Utah Jazz players, and then like I thought that would be like my last interaction with them. Then I saw them again a couple weeks later, and one of them jokingly was like, well, when's the next Sunday dinner? And I was like, you really just want a home-cooked meal, right? And he was like, yeah. And so we became friends. They asked me what I was going to school for. I said nursing, and they're like, do you want to be a nurse? And I was like, I actually love to travel. That's my ultimate goal, is to be a travel nurse. And I was like, but I don't love blood anymore. And he was like, well, like, you're fun to talk to, and you should like start working in sports. And that was one of the biggest things I learned, is that the relationships you build in sports will honestly make or break your experience. And those relationships will also make or break your experience in life. I think sometimes we think we're the most important person in the room, but I can bet you 9 times out of 10, you're not the most important person in that room. There's other people who know more than you, they're more connected than you. one of my favorite stories is I'm actually working for the Bees because I know Tony. I met Tony at a Utah State game randomly, and we started chatting, and then 2 seasons ago now, it was like 11 o'clock at night, and my phone's ringing, and I'm like, why in the heck is he calling me at 11 o'clock at night? Is everything okay with his family? So I answer it, and he's like, hey, I'm just at the gym right now, and I'm putting together a team. I was wondering if you would want to be a part of it. And I laugh at that, but like Craig and Tony have both said, the relationships you build are so vastly important. One of my mentors, I'm sure maybe some of you have heard of her, Roz Golden Woodegg. She was with the Warriors when they've won a couple championships. She went to ESPN and then TNT, and now she's back at ESPN. But it's because of her and her advice of, you know what, build relationships and also be good at everything. When I was hired on with the Bees this season, I wasn't hired to do social, I was hired to do community relations. But we needed help with social, and so I was like, yeah, I can do that. We all are on TikTok nowadays. I feel like I'm just watching TikTok all the time. We're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter, or now Laps is up and coming. And so there's all of these things that you can do to make your experience and build your career now. And those relationships are so valuable and so important. And I decided not to be a nurse, obviously. Now I get to work in sports. And like Craig had said, yeah, sports are a very competitive field, but I actually looked up this stat. As of today, in 2023, there were 108,000 openings in the sports industry. So there are jobs, and there's a website called workinsports.com, and this morning there were 24,000 job openings on this website that just gives you sports jobs. And so yeah, it is a competitive field, but there are lots of ways to get involved. And you know, Tony and Craig were chatting earlier in the sports, and I think a lot in life, it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, and building those relationships and talking to people and learning from other people. You know, I would almost bet that every one of you in here knows something about TikTok that I don't know. We're all on TikTok, we're sharing our lives, and there's just so much you can learn from others, so like be open to what others can teach you as well.
So I just want to like touch on that a little bit. Is marketing and communications, like that has evolved so much in my 10 years and even in the last few years. When I started as an intern, I was big on into social media. Like I was like, we should do more on Twitter, should do more on Facebook. And my boss was like, look, we're doing communications, we're writing press releases. I do not want to open the door that I have to deal with all of these social media accounts. And so we were very old school of like, wrote the press release, sent it out, maybe made some phone calls to media, like traditional media type of stuff. And that was the list. And like our social media accounts at the time were pretty much untouched because there was nobody that was in charge of it, right? And that was 2011, and we were already behind the times. I came back full-time in 2014. I remember the first week I got hired, the social media people that were doing the Bees also did the Jazz. And the Jazz, they were way overworked. There was like 2 people that were doing all the social media for just Jazz. And then they were supposed to do Bees in the summer, and they were like, we're not doing that. So like they grabbed me like my first day, like, hey, here's all the passwords. It's yours. Like, I'm not doing this anymore. And I was like, that was not the job description. We did not talk about that in the interview. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, I guess I'm just gonna figure this one out. And so like at the time it was like, yeah, like 2014, we were posting on Facebook and Twitter, and I don't even know if we had an Instagram. I only started Instagram later. And now it's like so diversified on like how do we reach people. Before it was like, you send a press release, it would be in the newspaper the next day, people would see it there, and the news media would talk about it on the 10 o'clock news, and we'd reach enough people, that would cover 70-80% of the people we were trying to reach would see it in one of those 2 ways. Now it's like, well, some people see it on TikTok, but some people don't have a TikTok, so we got to put it on Instagram. Some people are still on the Facebook, you know, the older group generation on social is still more of a Facebook crowd. There's still people watching the news. There's still people checking the Trib or the Deseret News' website, so we got to tell them, and we got to find whatever this new social media thing is. That stuff changes like on a dime, and not just the platforms and the way you reach them, but like the trend of what engages people on Instagram or TikTok or whatever, that stuff changes every few weeks. Every time you think you've got it figured out, that stuff doesn't work anymore, and you go back to the drawing board and it's like, what is working? Like, we were killing it with this type of content, and now it's gone. Like, that doesn't hit anymore at all. How do we change that and then reach these people? How do we get more impressions? How do we get more people to see it? Because at the end of the day, like I said, we're just trying to get you to be excited about the bees so you'll buy a ticket. A lot of it is crafting messaging and making sure people are positive about it. Can I show of hands, how many people know that the ballpark is moving from downtown? Okay, most of you, that's good. I want complete honesty. How many people are happy that the ballpark is moving down from downtown to South Jordan? Okay. How many people are not that happy? It's like further away. Okay. It's like 50. That's not a super popular decision, as we found out, but like, it doesn't really matter. It's happening, right? So like, I gotta make sure that this last year we were very about sending off the old ballpark. We had a lot of great members of the old ballpark. We weren't negative about the ballpark. But at the same time, we gotta be excited about the move, because the move is happening regardless, right? Like, if our messaging from Tony on the radio and TV, on our social media is like, it's happening, but we're not that excited. None of you are going to be excited because you can feel it in how the team acts. I don't want to talk badly about another organization, but when the Jazz rebranded to black and white and neon yellow, how many people were pumped about that? Nobody, right? And in my opinion, that was partly because they already knew that they didn't like it, and they came out with messaging that was like, hey, we're purple, and then here comes some yellow jerseys. And it's like, that doesn't, obviously you don't like it. Why would I like it? So even if we're not super into it, if my personal feeling is that I'm not happy about it, which is not true. I actually decided, I live in Daybreak, so it's the best thing that's ever happened to me. My commute is from 30 minutes to 2, so I'm super psyched. But if we're acting publicly that we're not that thrilled about it, there's no reason for you guys to be thrilled about it. So we gotta be constantly getting people over the head with this is cool, look at this cool thing, look at this cool thing. And doing that without saying oh, the old ballpark is so bad, you're having such a terrible experience at the old ballpark. That's pretty easy to tear down the old place, and then the new place will look great. To balance it that we were happy about the old ballpark, and we were sending it off, and we were saluting it, and it had done great by us, but it's going to be even better the next time. That's been a really fine line for us to walk for the last year, and continues to be, and will be, I'm sure, through all of the 2025 season. And hopefully people will come out, they'll experience it, they'll see oh, this is cool. We would get comments on social media. We put up a picture of the sun setting at the ballpark, and they're like, yeah, but you're leaving this. And it's the sun sets in Daybreak too. They have a sky there. They have sunsets that are cool colors. It's you lost the mountain view. The mountains are still there too. They're different orientation, but I promise you that there's mountains all across the Wasatch Front. So we just gotta keep continuing to press this message, and that can be a lot. It's a lot to craft the messaging and make sure that it's consistent. But the other thing is not only crafting message consistent, but the way Tony talks about the message is different than the way we talk about it on TikTok, which is different than the way we talk about it on Facebook, which is different than how we write about it on press release and on our website. You have to craft these voices and meet people where they are, platform, voice, whatever, in so many different ways. It's a fun but challenging thing to do.
All right, so I love that we had a chance to be here. Every one of you, when you're in your class, and you're in a class you don't want to be in, you have something on your mind. And it's usually whatever your ultimate dreams are. You think about them all the time. And you're constantly thinking about them. Because that's what actually moves you where you want to go, where you want to be. Maybe you don't know exactly what it is, but there's still something you ultimately want, right? So I remember certainly sitting in classes, the classes I love to be in, like mathematics, flowed like a river. Chemistry, it was a grind. I had to like fight to focus, right? So anyway, while we're here, what do you want to know about the things you care about? Yeah.
Well, I had a question. How much is like you guys making a job? Like, how much is this person making?
Yeah, that can definitely vary, because then you get, and I won't give you the numbers because that's proprietary
But is
information.
that like, would you say you do it because you love it or because of the money?
Well, I do it because I love it. And then when you love it, you seek opportunities to make as much money as you can at it, because now it becomes all one and the same. It becomes all one and the same. Yeah, absolutely.
I was gonna say, to put it in perspective, I live in an apartment in downtown Salt Lake working in sports. And it's because of all of the things I do, because I'm like, okay, hey, this is like, hey, I want to work in sports, I want to live a lifestyle, like, you know, after the season ended, I went to Nashville, I went to Vegas, I went to Washington, like I got to do some traveling. And so it was, hey, what am I going to do to set myself up for success? So not only am I working for the Bees, but then when it's a little bit slower, I'm covering men's hoops, I'm covering football. So yes, I love it, but I also, like, once baseball season gets a little bit slower, because we're in our off season right now, other avenues open up where I can go supplement my income.
So without answering the question, without answering the question, I think we all do well enough that we have like a life. I have a house, I have 2 kids and a wife, but my wife works full time, so it's not like she's not able to just stay at home, like, you know, and we make ends meet and the kids can do what they want to do, but like it's not a lavish lifestyle. When people ask me like, what's it like working in sports? If I'm being really honest, one of the answers I always give is, it's really fun. The hours are terrible and the pay sucks, which is like you take a discount to work in sports because it's such a fun job and it's viewed as a fun job, that if I were to do the equivalent of my job at like an ad agency, I would probably expect to make 20 to 30% more like on day one, and I would work 9 to 5. Right now, I don't know if you guys know like the baseball schedule. For minor league baseball, we start the last week of March, we go through about the last week of September. The current setup they have right now is almost every Monday is an off day, and then the team plays 6 consecutive days at home. They take Monday off for a road trip, and then they play 6 days on the road. If you're Tony, that doesn't really matter because you're at every game. So that's 150 days in, what is it called, like 172 days or something like that. For me, it's like I'm not traveling, but like you're still paying attention when the team's on the road. Like we're still updating social media feeds when the team is on the road. We can't just, you know, like you work office hours, but then the game gets played at night and you still have to pay attention, write up the game recap, update the website, update the Facebook page, all that kind of stuff. So like you work, my homestand like hours, just for me, is something like 10 to 10 on a like night game. So it's 12 hours, mostly 6 consecutive days. Sundays are a day game, so those are a little bit shorter, but like a little bit shorter means it ends up being like an 8-hour day on a Sunday. It's like 9 to 5, which, you know, we get done with the season. The All-Star break came when I was joking with Tony because we had 2 days off in a row during the All-Star break. I was like, most people get 2 days off every week. Like, and this was a special treat for us. The All-Star break came, I was like, wow, I got Saturday and Sunday off. What a time that was. And it's like, yeah, for any other job, that's called the weekend. Like, that's just how it is. So it has its challenges.
Do you guys go on the road with the team?
Tony does. Me and Kara are state backs.
I played professional baseball, so former contracted minor league player. 1988, we talked about schedule.
Oh wait, this schedule, like you, I'm sure you're gonna talk about. This schedule is so great.
4 scheduled days.
Yep.
Yes. When I even in 2014, we were talking about. I think we would play 144 in 154 or so. Like you get 3 days for the All-Star break, like usually 1 off day in a month, and then from July through the end of the season, there was usually like 1 day. So it was like a 2.5 month run with 1 day off.
1 day near the end of April, 2 at the All-Star break, 1 in August.
Oh yeah, like there's so many.
$1,000 a month.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
all about it.
Playing in minor league baseball is like, and it's way better than it was even a few years ago. The minor league baseball players are now unionized, they have protections, they fought for things like they get their housing paid for now, they have standard pay rates. But yeah, like rookie ball would be like, yeah, $1,000 a month, $500 a month. I mean, and they would be like, you live off your signing bonus, but like Tony and I and Karen know players that like, they signed for $500 on a bus ticket to go to the spring training site. That didn't last them very long. Yeah.
My signing was a donkey and a roadmap. They said, here's the roadmap, we'll see you in 3 days, and I was up in the Pacific Northwest my first year. So, but yeah.
Where'd you play at?
I played in Tri-Cities.
Oh, yeah.
That's where I'm from. Yeah.
So 1988, we went to get
The Posse?
You might be younger. We were the triplets at the time. Club was owned by the Bretts.
Okay.
And Pat Murphy, who's now the manager of the Brewers, was our manager.
Wow.
Okay.
Pat was in AAA for a little. Pat's a character, man. Like that was becoming not a fun manager to have. He was a hard one.
88, and it's a grind. So, and I appreciate what you guys do. I wanted to, after I was done playing, kind of go your path. When I'm getting a chance to coach, now I'm a head baseball coach. I've been for 30 plus years.
Yeah.
And we are live streaming this today, so TV and video. So I was able to, you guys are wondering, you're able to find a way to take whatever your passion is and make it work for you.
Yep.
Okay? There's all kinds of different paths.
100%. And like the people that want to work in sports, there's so many, like we were talking about, like with relationships and stuff. Some of the stuff is like we're talking about specifically like working in sports, but almost all of this is not unique to sports. In fact, I think it's like amplified in sports, and it's something that you can easily take with you to the next place, working at a bank, working in an office, working at a school, whatever it may be, for sure. I saw a good question I did, yeah.
What does the Bees organization do to bond the team?
Oh, that's a great question. Like the actual on-field baseball team?
What
So,
do you guys do for activities so that you have team bonding? And
Sarah's got all that stuff like that.
so that,
Olympics.
it's AAA baseball is a very unique spot because we had, I don't remember, but for this year, but in past years, we had like 75 guys play for us over the course of the season. They go, and we'll do anywhere between 200 and 300 transactions at the end of the year. So that means basically every day, almost, somebody left our roster, they got hurt, they got sent down, they got inactivated, they got called up, and somebody replaced them on the roster. So it is our manager, KJ, who's been our manager, keeps Johnson, he's been our manager on and off for a long time. He actually lives in Salt Lake now. He's awesome at this, but like it is such a difficult thing because you're playing for yourself, right? In AAA, nobody wants to be a career AAA player. That's not anybody's aspirations. You're one step away from the big leagues. You want to be a big league player, which means you need to shine individually, but that's only so good if you're not winning as a team. You know, you're 2 for 4 with a home run in a 13-2 game. Doesn't really make you look that good when you swung for the fences with 3 guys on in the 3rd inning, trying to hit a home run to pad your own stats. So it is a huge thing. Tony probably knows more from like stories of them going on the road and stuff. But it is just all about like that veteran leadership and people showing each other the ropes. There's young guys on the team all the time that have just come up from AA. It's their first taste of AAA. And it's a whole different level of caliber of players as they move up the system. And then there's also a bunch of guys that have been in the big leagues for a long time, and now they're in AAA just kind of waiting for that next opportunity. They've been hired basically to wait for an injury, wait for somebody to be ineffective, and then they're a steady person that they know they can go to in the bullpen or in the infield or whatever. You know, we get Jake Marisnik on our team this year. Jake was like a World Series champion with the Astros. He's been a big leaguer for a long time, and it's his job not just to play well on the field, but it's his job to grab our other outfielder, Bryce Teodosio, who's a young guy in his first year in AAA, and be like, this is how we conduct ourselves every day. And so, as a Bees organization, like as a front office, we don't do a ton of stuff to like bond the team. The team is kind of like their own organization run by the Angels. But it's tons of these little relationships. Do you have any good stories?
She's got more because they
So I know they do fantasy football in the off season. All of the guys love to golf. That's one thing a lot of them do it like on their Mondays if they're back. they'll find a golf course and go golf. And then as far as like from a social standpoint, every Tuesday became a different game. So like we would bring out Mario Kart or Connect Four, or we did Guess Who with the players. And so just giving them the opportunity to like not think about baseball for a minute and get competitive with each other in a fun way. It was really fun. You got to see like their personalities, and it helps them like build relationships with you, so they begin to trust you and will share more of who they are. We know that anything you put on social media has a digital footprint now, and the last thing I would ever want to do is put something on social and it be in a bad light for that person. And so just giving them that opportunity to still have fun, like Craig said, you don't want to play at the AAA level for forever, and it is a team sport, but it's also individualized. They're trying to help the team win, but they also want to go get a major league contract, and so they want to be successful. But there's a lot of fun things they do. I know the guys, you begin to start following them on social media, and they follow you, and one of our players and another one of them, they're planning a trip with their wives in January together. And so they build those relationships, and I think it's just part of being a team. You're around those guys so much and you build those relationships. I remember one time a couple of the players asked me, how do you keep your teeth so white? And I was like, well, one, my brother's a dentist, so I get bleach for free, and two, there's a special toothpaste you can use. And they're like, okay, send it to us. And so I sent them the links and stuff, and then one of the players ends up getting called up to the majors, and it's a random, I think, Tuesday night, and I get a text message from him, and it's a picture of the toothpaste I told him about. And so it's like you build those little relationships, but like we've all stated, like everything goes back to those relationships. And KJ does a fantastic job of getting the guys involved and like being with each other. That was one of the fun things is on game days, I'm right by the dugout and you see those guys excited for each other. One of the most special moments was we got to watch a guy get called up during the game, and that's, you don't get to see that often, and like everybody was congratulating him as he was walking through the dugout. And so I think your coaches and you have the opportunity to build that bond that you want with your team. And if you're only as good as the worst person on your team, and by just committing to being better and making sure everybody on your team has the same goal in mind. And I think at the AAA level, the goal is to get to the big leagues. And so everybody knows, like, if I'm playing well, that person's going to be playing well, and it's just a trickle effect.
So actually, while Carol's talking, I thought of a great story. We went into the All-Star break this year. I think we won 2 or 3 in a row. And because I'm a communication director, there's a lot of roster changes, and like times I need to communicate with the whole team and coaching staff. So I was on a group chat with just the coaches and the team and the players, and me, it's a front office representative. And right before the All-Star break, one of our veteran relievers, he'd been on the Cleveland teams like when they made the World Series against the Cubs. Like he sent a message to everybody like, we have to be at the All-Star break. We're going to Vegas after. I think our first game was Friday, but the team had to be in town Thursday for a workout. So their All-Star break went Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. They all had to fly back into Vegas on Thursday. So he sent a message like, I want everybody, I've been talking to everybody, but if you haven't got to me, I'm buying Caesar's Palace buffet for everybody. We're going out for dinner Thursday night. We all have to be in town for this workout. I want everybody. And then like the next day, I was like, I haven't heard from A, B, and C, and D. Are you guys coming? Like, I want everybody. We ended up ripping off, it was a 12-game win streak. It was the second longest in our franchise history. We were not a particularly good team this year, but everybody played well for like 12 straight days where we just found ways to win. Awesome. Guys played for each other, and like they always talked about it in the clubhouse, and when we did like media interviews, just like, yeah man, like I'm playing for him, he's playing for me, we're playing for each other. I know if I get the hit, he'll do the thing that will get the next hit, which will score the run. And I know if we get a run, the pitchers will bust their butt to make sure that lead stays in. So we get this 12-game winning streak. We're actually leading the division in our second half. The All-Star or the trading deadline comes. The Angels make a few trades, which puts 2 or 3 new guys on our team, disrupts the chemistry of the team a little bit. Everybody was feeling it. Then we have new guys coming in, and then some guys are like, the trading deadline happened, and they can see like my opportunity to go up seems to be capped now. This guy came in, took my position, he's gonna be the guy that gets called up. We start to falter, and then the other portion of it is, there's only so many guys you can have in your minor league system, and the draft had just happened, so they had to cut some veterans. There goes the guy that just did the Caesar Palace buffet, plus 4 or 5 other guys that had big league time, that knew how to handle themselves. August comes, we're a shell of our former selves. Like the team, a lot of it's the same guys, and all of a sudden they're not hitting the way they were 2 weeks ago. They're not pitching the way they are 2 weeks ago. You lose that little bit of just doing it for each other, like Tony said, even just in the front office, and it goes away like that. Chemistry is such a vital portion of on-field play, front office, whatever. We actually had Theo Epstein speak to us last fall. Everybody know who Theo Epstein is? You didn't probably do that. He was the GM of the Red Sox when they won the World Series in '04, and they moved over to the Cubs and broke the curse with the Cubs as well. He was talking about that '04 Red Sox team, and he's one of the pioneers of analytics in baseball and doing things by the spreadsheet and seeing stuff that people don't see. And he talked to us as much about it's really great to have all the numbers and know that these guys all get on base and these guys keep people, strike people out. But none of that stuff happens without good chemistry in the team. That Red Sox team does not win if Kevin Millar isn't keeping the team loose and David Ortiz and Manny Ramirez just don't play, like they just don't care if they're down 3-0 against the Yankees. They're going to go out and try and win this game. And that is so hard to define as a chemistry thing, but it's so important because there's so many teams that we see, NBA, NFL, MLB, anywhere. This team looks stacked on paper, and it never quite gels because they just don't have the right guys doing it. You need the guy that keeps everybody loose, but you need the guy that keeps everybody serious, and you need the guy that disciplines the locker room when things aren't going well. When somebody loafs it on a play, that it doesn't have to be the manager or the coach that says, hey, we don't do that. A veteran on the team comes and goes, that's not how we play this. You got to do a little bit better for us next time. And they respect each other enough to say, you know what, you're right. And they go out and they do it the next time. And those little things add up so much over the course of a season. And you just never know where they're going to come from.
Right. One thing I'll share, that they've been on all of this, they nailed it. Because that team won 16 out of 17, won 12 in a row at one point, and then lost 10 out of 12. Yeah. It happens like that. Some of my favorite moments, kind of off of that, was I pulled up to the stadium in Texas or in Sugar Land. I get out of the Uber, and there's one of the players getting in the Uber, and I walk by him and say, hey, how's it going? And he shakes my hand, and he's got this adrenaline in his arm, and he looks like an 8-year-old kid. He's trembling, he's shaking. This is a tall, grown man. It's because he's getting called to the big ones. And he's like, thanks, man. Thanks, bro. My dad wanted to say thank you for this and that. And I'm like, whoa. And then another one that I had in El Paso where this guy, one of the few people that was actually shorter than me ever, but this guy was so excited, he jumped in my arms. Jumped in my arms and wrapped his arms around. I'm going to the new age. He was it was his first call I've ever heard. My thing is, look, I've experienced a lot working in sports. Whenever I'm asked to come talk to anybody, I want everybody to experience something like that in their life. I really, really do. I was blessed enough to have that happen to me. I was at the gym, I was laying there, and I got a phone call, and it was kind of out of the blue. Long story how it all came together, but a Major League Baseball producer had seen my work on ESPN Plus, the streaming, for a Weber State game, and he wanted to work with me. And the game that we would work with each other was on ESPN national television, prime time, Saturday night, big deal, huge audience, and it was a huge, that was my call up, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So I hope everybody can have that dream to have that happen. So while we're here, what else can we tell you? What other things do you want to know, kind of as you think through those things on what you really want? Yeah. My high school GPA? Yes, I was over a 3.7 every term, and then my very last one was a 3.3. I was moving on. And So I'd already had decisions on what I was doing, going to college and stuff like that. But yeah, no, I did really, really well. I never got a 4.0, man. I was always on the doorstep. Had several 3.9s, but I was regularly 3.7 and above. Yeah. I don't remember. It was probably about 3.7, 3.8. I got a full ride scholarship to Utah State based off my GPA and ACT score. And then I got to college and nobody checked to see if I was in class every day. And I was like, this is great. Like, nobody checked out on me. And then that scholarship went away pretty quickly because I wasn't in class and doing homework. So don't do that. That really might influence you. Like that was a really tough thing. That was a hard lesson I needed to learn. But yeah.
I was gonna say Michigan said no to me. That was my dream, and then Utah said yes. And yeah, with scholarship, that decided that very quickly.
I think my high school GPA was like a 3.7 or 3.8, but I just want to like iterate this, and teachers do not hate me for this. You will not be graded by your GPA when you apply for a job.
Nope.
What you do to build your resume is more important than your GPA. Like, I'm sure you all have heard the saying, like, C's get degrees. My brother is a dentist now, and he got a bunch of C's until he decided he wanted to be a dentist and then had to get good grades to be a dentist. And so, yes, your GPA now is important to get you into colleges, but after high school, like, your GPA is just another number. So, like, build your resume, get involved in high school. I was super involved in high school, and I was involved in college. And even now, I would like to be involved because those relationships and those cell phone numbers you have will be more important than, oh yeah, I graduated high school with a 4.0.
Any other questions? Yeah.
How often do you guys like sponsor people? Or like
Hire interns? Is it talking about hiring interns?
Like interns or?
Yeah, hire interns.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Craig hires interns in the spring, so just look out for those. I think there's 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah, across the Bs, we probably have 10 to 12 interns would be my guess. There's 1 or 2 in the press box with me. The grounds group has a couple. Marketing will have some. Those are generally kids that are just graduating college or like maybe are juniors in college. And it's really about the coursework that they've done. It seems so bad to say, but like when we look at internships, that's an introductory job, right? Internship by nature. But when we're talking about like how competitive the field is, like the resumes that go straight to the top are like, for me, when I'm hiring someone in communications, they did communications for their college in their sports information department. They wrote for their school newspaper in high school or college. Like they've already figured out what they want to do, and they've done several steps and showed success. When I have 50 resumes on my desk, I'm a little cocky in this way. I can make a really good intern out of anybody. I can teach a lot of people the job, but I know for sure if you've done it a little bit before, it's going to be a lot easier on me to get you to that spot. And I'm going to depend on you, the intern, to help me get through the season. So I got to know that you're going to be able to do it. So do that coursework wherever you can. Whether that be you want to work in the grounds crew, you want to work in the press box, you want to work in sales, whatever you can do to do that to start with, do it.
Let's have a round of applause for this.
Thank you guys.
I remember my seniors. So these are kids that have so many testimonies psychology that we pay for a couple of things like now, mom and dad, you know, one thing I can tell is kids communication. They can do it. We don't do as fun of it. There's just kids that look at the slides and say, let's do it. I only focus on this. I remember we were going from Tri-Cities to Everest. Pretty much Everest. I was just going to go. And when we went, I was over. Yes. In July. So that, yes. So okay, so like that. So that's like what a lot of these carry do in terms of community stuff. So one, if you guys ever do like silent auction type stuff, you're trying to bring in then like let us know. We can get you tickets, signed auctions. Let's give you that kind of stuff. Then you can sell it. You can make some great information from what you're and then we can help you out.
I got my degree.
You're all those phone calls.